One of the challenges I think we face when we're talking with patients and caregivers is that there can be certain misunderstandings about what should happen to us as we get older. And so you have probably all been in clinic and had people tell you about their senior moments, and they have forgotten their car keys, or they went into a room and they don't know why they're there, or they walk up to an acquaintance that they should know the name of that person and they don't know the name of that person. And all of those complaints really generally, when researchers looked at it, start in our 40s. And you're probably sitting there listening to your patient thinking, oh, good grief, I did that yesterday. Or now I can't even remember this man's first name. And here I am talking to these individuals about this. So one of the first sort of misconceptions is that it is something that happens to all of us. Well, the senior moments, those momentary lapses that I call the nuisance memory lapses, those do happen to all of us, but there is a distinct difference between individuals for whom memory lapses represent a real significant change in their overall cognitive ability to make a new memory. That's really the failure of the brain at that moment to take that processing information, run it through the hippocampus, and store it in the other sections of the brain where that memory is going to be stored. So those are the people we're looking for, not the nuisance people that their brain maybe is a little aged and a little slower, or they were distracted. We're not looking for those people. We need to find the people who have a brain that isn't functioning. And that dysfunction of the brain, I tend to talk to families about it and patients and explain to them that the very common illness that they've heard about, which is something like congestive heart failure, that's where that heart muscle is starting to fail. It's starting to not do its core function. And then there are symptoms related to that core function no longer working. So that, to me, turns out to be a really good in the clinic analogy to use with your patients when you're talking to them about being concerned that their brain is showing symptoms, perhaps, of a core failure of one of its functions. And that's really why you want to look further into it for them, because just like with heart failure, if we learn about heart failure early, doctors have medicines to use that help us actually change the stress on that muscle, change the actual function and anatomy of the muscle, so that we can hopefully decrease the ongoing stress and decrease the symptoms that come from that heart failure. Well, in a similar way, if we find a brain that is starting to fail, otherwise known as one of the dementias, or to our patients, Alzheimer's disease, if we find that, we want to similarly do the same thing. We want to de-stress it. We want to make sure there's no other conditions that are causing additional stress, making those symptoms, that failure, all the more worse. We want to attend any symptoms that are coming along with it. Maybe there's an emotional disturbance coming with it. Maybe they're depressed. No one's going to think straight when you're depressed or anxious. So we want to do those sorts of things to help do everything we can to mitigate that failure for that individual over time. So that tends to be a good analogy to use, and I think really speaks to that fact that just like with congestive heart failure, we can't cure it, but there's a lot we can do to help lessen that shortness of breath and keep those patients paying attention to what they need to do. We need a similar sort of approach to our patients with any of the Alzheimer's disease or dementia disorders. We can't cure it, but there's a lot we can do, there's a lot they can do, and together we can monitor this chronic illness over time and help them do as well as they can while the brain is having the challenges that we unfortunately know will come with that kind of illness.